Hazardous materials, driving and parking rules. Parking with Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives. Never park with Division 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives within 5 feet of the traveled part of the road, except for short periods of time needed for vehicle operation necessities, fueling. Do not park within 300 feet of a bridge, tunnel, or building, a place where people gather and open fire. If you must park to do your job, do so only briefly. Do not park on private property unless the owner is aware of the danger. Someone must always watch the parked vehicle. You may let someone else watch it for you only if your vehicle is on the shipper's property, on the carrier's property, on the consignee's property. You are allowed to leave your vehicle unattended in a safe haven. A safe haven is an appropriate place for parking unattended vehicles loaded with explosives. Designation of authorized safe havens is usually made by local authorities. Parking in placarded vehicles not transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 explosives. You may park a placarded vehicle not laden with explosive within 5 feet of the traveled part of a road only if your work requires it. Do so only briefly. Someone must always watch the vehicle when parked on a public roadway or shoulder. Do not uncouple a trailer or leave it with hazardous material on the public street. Do not park within 300 feet of an open fire. Attending parked vehicles. The person attending a placarded vehicle must be in the vehicle awake and not in the sleeper or berth or within 100 feet of a vehicle and have it within clear view. Be aware of the hazards of the materials being transported. Know what to do in emergencies. Be able to move the vehicle if needed. No flares. You might break down and have to use stopped vehicle signs. Use reflective triangles or red electric lights. Never use burning signals such as flares or fuses around a tank used for Class 3 flammable liquids or Division 1.2, 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 explosives. Route restrictions. Some states and countries require permits to transport hazardous materials or waste. They may limit the route you can use. Local rules about routes and permits change often. It is your job as a driver to find out if you need permits or must use special routes. Make sure you have all the needed papers before starting. If you work for a carrier, ask the dispatcher about route restrictions or permits. If you are an independent trucker and are planning a new route, check with the state emergencies agencies where you plan to travel. Some localities prohibit transportation of hazardous materials through tunnels, over bridges, or other roadways. Always check before you start. Whenever placarded, avoid heavily populated areas, crowds, tunnels, narrow streets, and alleys. Take other routes even if inconvenient, unless there is no other way. Never drive a placarded vehicle near open fires unless you can safely pass without stopping. If transporting Division 1.2, 1.1, 1.2, or 1.3 explosives, you must have a written route plan and follow that plan. Carriers prepare the route plan in advance and give the driver a copy. You may plan the route yourself if you pick up explosives at a location other than your employer's terminal. Write out the plan in advance. Keep a copy of it with you while transporting the explosives. Deliver shipments of explosives only to authorized persons or leave them in locked rooms designed for explosive storage. A carrier must choose the safest route to transport placarded radioactive materials. After choosing the route, the carrier must tell the driver about the radioactive materials and show the route plan. No smoking. Do not smoke within 25 feet of a placarded cargo tank used for Class C flammable liquids or Division 2.1 gases. Also, do not smoke or carry a lighted cigarette, cigar, or pipe within 25 feet of any vehicle which contains Class 1 explosives, Class 3 flammable liquids, Class 4.1 flammable solids, Class 4.2 spontaneous combustibles, and Class 5 oxidizers. Refuel with engine off. Turn off your engine before fueling a motor vehicle containing hazardous materials. Someone must always be at the nozzle controlling the fuel flow. The power unit of placarded vehicles must have a fire extinguisher with a UL rating of 10 BC or more. Make sure your tires are properly inflated. You must examine each tire on a motor vehicle at the beginning of each trip and each time the vehicle is parked. The only applicable way to check tire pressure is to use a tire pressure gauge. Do not drive with a tire that is leaking or flat except to the nearest safe place to fix it. Remove any overheated tire. Place it a safe distance from your vehicle. Do not drive until you correct the cause of the overheating. Remember to follow the rules about parking and attending placard vehicles. They apply even when checking, repairing, or replacing tires. Where to keep shipping papers and emergency response information. Do not accept a hazardous material shipment without a properly prepared shipping paper. A shipping paper for hazardous material must always be easily recognized. Other people must be able to find it quickly after a crash. Clearly distinguish hazardous material shipping papers from others by tabbing them or keeping them on top of the stack of papers. When you are behind the wheel, keep shipping papers within your reach, with your seatbelt on or in a pouch on the driver's door. They must be easily seen from someone entering the cab. When not behind the wheel, leave shipping papers in the driver's door pouch or on the driver's seat. Emergency response information must be kept in the same location as the shipping paper. Papers for Division 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 explosives. A carrier must give each driver transporting Division 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 explosives a copy of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations, Part 397. The carrier must also give the written instructions on what to do if delayed or in an accident. The written instructions must include the name and the telephone number of the people to contact, including carrier agents or shippers, the nature of the explosive transported, the precautions to take in emergencies such as fires, accidents, or leaks. Drivers must sign a receipt for these documents. You must be familiar with and have in your possession while driving the shipping papers, the written emergency instructions, the written route plan, a copy of FMCSR Part 397. Equipment for chlorine. A driver transporting chlorine in cargo tanks must have an appropriate gas mask in the vehicle. The driver must also have an emergency kit for controlling leaks and dome-covered plate fittings on the cargo tanks. Stop before railroad crossings. Stop before a railroad crossing if your vehicle is placarded, carries any amount of chlorine, has cargo tanks, whether loaded or empty, used for hazardous materials. You must stop 15 to 50 feet before the nearest rail. Proceed only when you are sure no train is coming and you can clear the track without stopping. Don't shift gears while crossing the tracks. Hazardous material emergencies. Emergency response guidebook. The Department of Transportation has a guidebook for firefighters, police, and industry workers on how to protect themselves from the public from hazardous materials. The guide is indexed by proper shipping name and hazardous material identification number. Emergency personnel look for these things on the shipping papers. That is why it is vital that the proper shipping name, identification number, label, and placards are correct. Crashes and incidents. As a professional driver, your job at the scene of a crash or an accident is to keep people away from the scene, limit the spread of material only if you can safely do so, communicate the danger of the hazardous material to emergency response personnel, provide emergency responders the shipping papers and emergency response information. Follow this checklist. Check to see if your driver partner is okay. Keep shipping papers with you. Keep people far away and upwind. Warn others of the danger and call for help. And follow your employer's instructions. Fires. You might have to control minor truck fires on the road. However, unless you have the training and equipment to do so safely, do not fight hazardous material fires. Dealing with hazardous material fires requires special training and protective gear. When you discover a fire, call for help. You may use the fire extinguisher to keep minor truck fires from spreading to cargo before firefighters arrive. Feel trailer doors to see if they are hot before opening them. If hot, you may have a cargo fire and should not open the doors. Opening doors lets in air and may make the fire flare up. Without air, many fires only smolder until firemen arrive, doing less damage. If the cargo is already on fire, it is not safe to fight the fire. Keep these shipping papers with you to give to emergency personnel as soon as they arrive. Warn other people of danger and keep them away. If you discover a cargo leak, identify the hazardous materials leaking by using the shipping papers, label, and package location. Do not touch any leak materials. Many people injure themselves by touching hazardous materials. Do not try to identify the material or find the source of the leak by smell. Toxic gases can destroy your sense of smell and can injure or kill you even if they don't smell. Never eat, drink, or smoke around a leak or spill. If hazardous materials are spilling from your vehicle, do not move it any more than safety requires. You may move off the road and away from places where people gather, if doing so serves safety. Only move your vehicle if you can do so without danger to yourself and others. Never continue driving with hazardous materials leaking from your vehicle in order to find a phone, truck stop, help, or similar reason. Remember, the carrier pays for the cleanup and contaminated parking lots, roadways, and drainage ditches. The costs are enormous, so don't leave a lengthy trail of contamination. If hazardous materials are spilling from your vehicle, park it, secure the area, stay there, call for help, or send someone else for help. When sending someone else for help, give that person a description of the emergency, your exact location, and direction of travel. Your name, the carrier's name, and the name of the community or city where your terminal is located, the proper shipping name, hazard class, and identification number of the hazardous material if you know them. This is a lot for someone to remember. It's a good idea to write it all down for the person you sent for help. The emergency response team must know these things to find you and to handle the emergency. They may have to travel miles to get to you. This information will help them to bring the right equipment the first time without having to go back for it. Never move your vehicle. If doing so will cause contamination or damage the vehicle. Keep upwind and away from the roadside rest, truck stops, cafes, and businesses. Never try to repack leaking containers unless you have the training and equipment to repair the leak safely. Don't try it. Call your dispatcher or supervisor for instructions and, if needed, emergency personnel. Responses to specific hazards. Class 1, explosives. If your vehicle has a breakdown or accident while carrying explosives, warn others of the danger. Keep bystanders away. Do not allow smoking or open fires near the vehicle. If there is a fire, warn everyone of the danger of explosion. Remove all explosives before separating vehicles involved in a collision. Place the explosives at least 200 feet from the vehicles and occupied buildings. Stay a safe distance away. Class 2, compressed gases. If compressed gases is leaking from your vehicle, warn others of the danger. Only permit those involved in removing the hazard or wreckage to get close. You must notify the shipper if compressed gas is involved in any accident. Unless you are fueling machinery used in road construction or maintenance, do not transfer a flammable compressed gas from one tank to another on any public roadway. Class 3, flammable liquids. If you are transporting a flammable liquid and have an accident and your vehicle breaks down, prevent bystanders from gathering. Warn people of the danger. Keep them from smoking. Never transport a leaking cargo tank farther than needed to reach a safe place. Get off the roadway if you can do so safely. Do not transfer flammable liquids from one vehicle to another on a public roadway except in an emergency. Class 4, flammable solids. Class 5, oxidizing materials. If a flammable solid or oxidizing material spills, warn others of the fire hazard. Do not open smoldering packages or flammable solids. Remove them from the vehicle if you can safely do so. Also, remove unbroken packages if it will decrease the fire hazard. Class 6, poisonous materials and infectious substances. It is your job to protect yourself and other people from harm. Remembering that many products classed as poison are also flammable. If you think a Division 2.3 poisonous gas or 6.1 poisonous materials might be flammable, take the added precautions needed for flammable liquids or gases. Do not allow smoking, open flame, or welding. Warn others of the hazards of fire and inhaling vapors or coming in contact with the poison. A vehicle involved in a leak of Division 2.3 poisonous gases or Division 6.1 poisons must be checked for strayed poison before being used again. If a Division 6.2 infectious substance package is damaged in handling or transportation, you should immediately contact your supervisor. Packages that appear to be damaged or show signs of leaking should not be accepted. Class 7, radioactive materials. If radioactive material is involved in a leak or a broken package, tell your dispatcher or supervisor as soon as possible. If there is a spill or if an internal container might be damaged, do not touch or inhale the materials. Do not use the vehicle until it is cleaned and checked with a survey meter. Class 8, corrosive materials. If corrosives spill or leak during transportation, be sure to avoid further damage or injury when handling the containers. The Parts of the vehicle exposed to the corrosive liquid must be thoroughly washed with water. After unloading, wash out the interior as soon as possible before reloading. If continuing to transport a leaking tank would be unsafe, get off the road. If safe to do so, contain any liquid leaking from the vehicle. Keep bystanders away from the liquid and its fumes. Do everything possible to prevent injury to yourself and to others. Required notifications. The National Response Center helps coordinate emergency response to chemical hazards. It is a resource to police and firefighters. It maintains a 24-hour toll-free line listed below. You or your employer must phone when any of the following occur as a direct result of a hazardous material incident. A person is killed. An injured person requires hospitalization. Estimated property damage exceeds $50,000. The general public is evacuated for more than 1 hour. One or more major transportation arteries or facilities are closed for 1 hour or more. Fire breakage, spillage, or suspected radioactive contamination occurs. Fire, breakage, spillage, or suspected contamination occur involving shipments of infectious substances such as bacteria or toxins. The release of a marine pollutant in a quantity greater than 119 gallons for a liquid or 882 pounds for a solid, or a situation exists of some nature, continuing danger to life exists at the scene of an accident, that in the judgment of the carrier should be reported. The National Response Center's number is 1-800-424-8802. Persons telephoning the National Response Center should be ready to give their name and address of the carrier they work for, phone number where they can be reached, the date, time, and location of incident, the extent of injuries, if any, classification, name, and quantity of hazardous materials involved in such information, if such information is available, type of incident and nature of hazardous material involved, and whether a continuing danger to life exists at the scene. If a reportable quantity of a substance was involved, the caller should give the name of the shipper and the quantity of the hazardous substance discharged. Be prepared to give your employer the required information as well. Carriers must take detailed written report within 30 days of an accident. The phone number for Chemtrek is 1-800-424-9300. The Chemical Transportation Emergency Center, Chemtrek, in Washington also has a 24-hour toll-free line. Chemtrek was created to provide emergency personnel with technical information about physical properties of hazardous materials. The National Response Center and Chemtrek are also in close communication. If you call either one, they will tell the other about the problem when appropriate. Do not leave radioactive yellow type 2 or yellow type 3 labels packaged near people, animals, or film longer than shown in figure 9.1. So review 9.1 and I guess 9.2. 9.10 and 9.11. Some says 9.6 and 9.7 test your knowledge. If your placarded trailer has dual tires, how often should you check the tires? What is a safe haven? How close to the traveling part of a roadway can you park with Division 1.2 or 1.3 materials? How close can you park to a bridge, tunnel, or building with the same load? What type of fire extinguisher must placarded vehicles carry? You're hauling 100 pounds of Division 4 dangerous when wet materials. Do you need to stop before a railroad highway crossing? At a rest area, you discover your hazardous material shipment slowly leaking from the vehicle. There is no What is the Emergency Response Guidebook, ERG? These questions may be on your tests. If you can't answer them all, reread section 9.6 and 9.7. 9.8 Hazardous Materials Glossary. This glossary represents definition of certain terms used in this section. A completed glossary of terms can be found in the Federal Hazardous Materials Rules 49 CFR 171.8. You should have up-to-date copies of these rules for your reference. You will not be tested on this glossary. Section 171.8 Definitions and Abbreviations. Bulk packaging. Packaging other than a vessel or a barge, including a transport vehicle or freight container in which hazardous materials are loaded with no intermediate form of contaminant and which has a maximum capacity greater than 450 liters or 119 gallons as a receptacle for a liquid, a maximum net greater than 440 kilograms, 882 pounds, or a maximum capacity greater than 450 liters and 119 gallons of a receptacle for a solid, or a water capacity greater than 454 kilograms or 1,000 pounds of a receptacle for a gas as defined in sections 173.115. Cargo tank, a bulk package which is a tank intended primarily for carriage of liquids or gases and includes apparatuses, reinforcements, fittings, and closures, is permanently attached to or forms a part of a motor vehicle and is not permanently attached to a motor vehicle, but which, by reason of its size, construction, or attachment to a motor vehicle, is loaded or unloaded without being removed from the motor vehicle, and is not fabricated under specifications for cylinders, portable tanks, tank cars, and multi-unit tanks. Carrier, a person who transports passengers or property in commerce by rail car or aircraft, motor vehicle, or vessel. Consignee, the business or person to whom a shipment is delivered. Division, a subdivision of a hazard class. EPA, U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. FMCSR, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. Freight container, a reusable container having a volume of 64 cubic feet or more, designed and constructed to permit being lifted with its contents intact and intended primarily for containment of packages in unit form during transportation. Fuel tank, a tank other than a cargo tank used to transport flammable or combustible liquids or compressed gas for the purpose of supplying fuel for propulsion of the transport vehicle to which it is attached, and for the operation of other equipment on the transport vehicle. All right. Gross weight or gross mass, the weight of the packaging plus the weight of its contents. Hazard class, the category of hazard assigned to hazardous materials under the definition criteria of Part 173 and the provisions of Section 172.101 table. A material may meet the defining criteria for more than one hazard class, but is assigned to only one hazard class. Hazardous materials. A substance of material which has been determined by the Secretary of Transportation to be capable of posing an unreasonable risk to health, safety, and property when transported in commerce, and which has been so designated. The term includes hazardous substances, hazardous waste, marine pollutants, elevated temperature materials, and materials designated as hazardous in the Hazardous Materials Table 172.101, and materials that meets the defining criteria for hazard classes and divisions in 173, subchapter C of this section. Hazardous substance. A material including its mixtures and solutions that is listed in Appendix A is in a quantity in one package which equals or exceeds the reported quantity RQ listed in Appendix A, when in a mixture or solution for radionucleotides conform to paragraph 7 of Appendix A. For other than radionucleotides, it is a concentration by weight which equals or exceeds the concentration responding to the reportable quantity of materials as shown in figure 9.12. That's a useless definition. This definition does not apply to petroleum products that are lubricants or fuels. Hazardous waste. Any material that is subject to hazardous waste manifest regulations of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency specified in 40 Part 262. In intermediate bulk container, IBC, a rigid or flexible portable package other than a cylinder or portable tank, which is designed for mechanical handling. Standards for IBC manufactured in the United States are set forth in Subpart N and O, Part 178. Limited quantity. The maximum amount of a hazardous material for which there may be specified labeling or packaging exceptions. Marking. The descriptive name, identification number, instructions, cautions, weight, specifications, or UN marking or combination thereof required by this subchapter and outer packaging of hazardous materials. Mixture. A material composed of more than one chemical compound or element. Name of contents. The proper shipping name as specified in section 172.101. Non-bulk packaging. A packaging which has a maximum capacity of 450 liters, 119 gallons as a receptacle for liquid, a maximum net mass less than 400 kilograms, 882 pounds, and a maximum capacity of 450 liters and 119 gallons or less as a receptacle for solids. A water capacity greater than 454 kilograms or 1,000 pounds or less as a receptacle for gas as defined in section 173.115. Regardless of the definition of bulk packaging, a maximum net mass of 882 pounds or less for a bag or box conforming to the applicable requirements for specification packaging, including the maximum net mass limitations provided in subpart L of part 178. NOS, not otherwise specified. Outage or ullage, the amount by which a package falls short or being liquid full, usually expressed in percentage by volume. Portable tank. Bulk package except a cylinder waiving a water capacity of 1,000 pounds or less, designed primarily to be loaded onto or on or temporarily attached to a transport vehicle or shipped and equipped with skids, mounting, or accessories to facilitate handling of the tank by mechanical means. It does not include a cargo tank, tank car, multi-unit tank, car, tank, or a trailer carrying 3AX, 3AAX, or 3T cylinders. Proper shipping name. The name of the hazardous material shown in Roman print, not italics, in section 172.101. PSI, pounds per square inch. PSIA, pounds per square inch, absolute. RQ, or reportable quantity. The quantity specified in column 2 of Appendix 2, section 172.101 for any material identified in column 1 of the appendix. PHMSA, the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, the U.S. Department of Transportation, Washington, D.C., 20590. Shipper's Certificate. A statement on a shipping paper signed by the shipper saying he or she prepared the shipment properly according to law. Shipping paper. A shipping order, bill of lading, manifest, or other shipping documents serving a similar purpose prepared in accordance with subpart C of Part 172. Technical name. A recognized chemical name or microbiological name currently used in scientific and technical handbooks, journals, and texts. Transport vehicle. A cargo carrying vehicle such as an automobile, van, tractor, truck, semi-trailer, tank car, or rail car used for the transportation of cargo by any mode. Each cargo carrying body is a separate transport vehicle. UN standard packaging. A specific packaging conforming to the standards in the UN recommendations. The UN is United Nations.